Hey everyone, welcome to episode 306 of the All Dolphins podcast. A very special episode on this Friday. Well, it's going to last on the weekend of Friday, June 14th. A very good day in South Florida with the Florida Panthers on the verge of wrapping up the first Stanley Cup title in franchise history, up 3-0 in a final against the Edmonton Oilers after winning 4-3 on Thursday night. But it also was a day when the Dolphins made a lot of news, some directly, some indirectly, and we're going to get into all that. Of course, it involves Calais Campbell. It involves Marcus May. It involves Davion Nix Jr. and the end of his career with the Miami Dolphins. Very brief career. Sorry, Davion. And also Tua. First, yes, we are going to do the quick history lesson because we're at 2006, corresponding to episode 306. Perk, I believe you were on the Dolphins beat then, or were you still UM or Heat?
Heat. I was doing Heat. Heat's championship season that year, the 05-06 season.
That is correct. Championship number one, was it not?
Yep.
Okay. Well, interestingly enough, as that's for a segue, the Dolphins actually were anointed Super Bowl champions in 2006 before the season by Sports Illustrated after they had made the acquisition of Daunte Culpepper in the offseason, acquiring him from the Minnesota Vikings for a second-round pick. Didn't work out that way. And, of course, this was the offseason where they could have signed Drew Brees, whose first preference was to sign with the Dolphins. They checked him out medically. And as the story told by former GM Randy Mueller on another podcast, whose name escapes me, I apologize, the doctor who examined him was affiliated with then owner Wayne Huizenga, and he red flagged Drew Brees' medical. And as Mueller explained, if the doctor who's affiliated with your owner red flags a player, kind of tough to sign the player. So the Dolphins moved on instead, made the trade for Daunte Culpepper, who lasted all the 4 games for the Dolphins. The Dolphins wound up starting off 1-6. Before finishing off, limping to the finish line, 6-10, and then what we had at the end of the season with the whole drama with Nick Saban in his second year as head coach, who was romanced, wooed, whatever you want to call it, by Alabama, leading to a very famous press conference that involved your colleague at the Sun-Sentinel and regular guest on this show as well, Dave Hyde, who kept pounding on to Saban and insisting for Saban to answer the question, can you not say it? Which led to, of course, Saban making the infamous statement, okay, how many times am I going to say it? I will not be the Alabama head coach. Lo and behold, a few days later, it was the Alabama head coach. So, 2006, there was one good thing that came out of 2006. Jason Taylor was named NFL Defensive Player of the Year in his role as an outside linebacker in Nick Saban's defense. And what made the accomplishment even more special is you had a player winning that kind of honor on a team that went 6-10. So, okay,
good stuff.
Yeah, catching up now to the present, and again, we're going to start with the addition of Calais Campbell. I mean, as I put out on Twitter yesterday and wrote, absolutely. I mean, there's absolutely nothing not to love about this particular acquisition. What stands out to you about it, Perk?
Look, this is a good guy, a high-quality individual, a productive player, a guy who you don't need him to play, 50 snaps a game. He'll be a rotational guy. He'll probably come in as the starter, right? I don't know if he will or not. You got Chop Robinson, Shaq Barrett, and Calais Campbell. Whether he does or not, he's set up for success, right? Because again, you don't need a whole bunch of snaps from Calais. Initially, you need him to be in a rotation with, we think, Shaq Barrett and Chop Robinson. And
Perk, let me stop you right now because you and I are going to differ on here. I have him pegged not as an edge guy, as more of an inside guy. So to me, he's not competing with edge or with a Barrett or Robinson. But to me, he lines up next to Sealer, and then that whole free-for-all that we had, with whether it's going to be Benito Jones or Neville Gallimore or Jonathan Harris or T.R. Tart, if the Dolphins want to go through three big inside, it's Sealer, Campbell, and somebody else. Sometimes they'll go two big inside and then the two edge defenders, and Campbell and Sealer normally are your guys.
Yeah, and I did write in the Sentinel that, yeah, you have options with Calais. He played for Anthony Weaver in Baltimore, and right, his size means that he's got versatility, and so we've seen him move around throughout his career. So he's a defensive lineman, a defensive end by trade, but he'll be a defensive lineman with the Dolphins. I'll tell you something else that I know nobody else cares about with this pickup, but the Dolphins continue getting quality individuals. And I've written about this, the low knucklehead factor on this team. We know Calais is a 2019 Walter Payton Man of the Year award winner, high quality individual, productive player. That matters. Nice signing all the way around.
No, and I completely agree with you. And this is one of those guys. You need that kind of guy, who's going to keep everybody in line. And then they do have like a lot of young players on defense, and he is a fabulous leader. The dude's been in the NFL since 2008 with his rookie season. And by the way, he had 6.5 sacks last year, which is very good, very, very solid, because he does other things as well. You're looking at a guy who also is good at blocking kicks. Again, he's 6'8". He's a very large individual. And the only downside, we haven't seen the contract terms, number one, and I can't imagine the Dolphins broke the bank for him. This is a guy who's 37 years old, going to be 38 in September 1st, whose career is winding down, and probably at this point was only going to play for a few select teams. He played at the University of Miami. So this is sort of a homecoming for him on a team that's got legitimate, title aspirations. Whether they get there or not, whether they're legitimate title contenders is a discussion for another day. But they certainly have the right to believe that they are, based on what they've done the past couple of years. And to me, the only issue anybody could ever have with this signing is he's 37 years old. But guess what? He was 37. He played at 37 last year, and he was highly effective for the Atlanta Falcons. Showed he still has good ball. Now, of course, with a guy that age, if it starts going because of his age, it could go down fast. I mean, really fast. But, I mean, there's Dolphins. Once they had the opportunity to make this happen, they'd have been crazy not to jump on it. I mean, this is an A+ move right here. And I'm not going to give away all of it, but I re-ranked the veteran offseason acquisitions from 1 to 20 on si.com/NFL/Dolphins on Friday morning. And let me just tell you that Calais Campbell's in my top 3.
That brings me to my point, Poop. When you talk about the downside to this, the very small downside is collective. How many of their top signings this offseason are 30-somethings? OBJ and Shaq Barrett for his role, Jordan Poyer. Now you're adding Calais. You already had Teron Armstead. So, Raheem Mostert. I'm not really going to throw Tyreek and Jalen Ramsey into that category. They're younger. It's another 30-something that realistically, let's see what we get from him. Idealistically, yeah, excellent. Realistically, let's see what we get from all these 30-somethings. I don't want to get ahead of the show, but the Dolphins might have hedged their bet there with the Marcus May acquisition.
Yeah, and I think it's probably unfair to expect or unrealistic to expect all of the 30-something acquisitions to all play full seasons and all be the same guy that we know they are. But by the same token, it's also fair to expect that at least some of them, if not most of them, play at that level. And again, I think the snap count I saw was 712 for Campbell last year. I believe he played 16 games. So if I do quick math here, that's some 47 snaps a game. I mean, if he gives you 47 quality snaps a game, it's a very, very solid acquisition. And I think it flushes out one of the issues that they had on defense, which was depth on the defensive line. And then the acquisition of Marcus May, which you and I have not discussed, which we can get into right now, kind of takes care of an issue at safety. Now, to me, I think the only one remaining issue might be perhaps depth at cornerback, although by osmosis that gets helped a little bit with the acquisition of Marcus May, because now maybe Nick Needham focuses solely on cornerback. And now you have Kendall Fuller, Jalen Ramsey, Kader Kohu, Nick Needham, Cam Smith, Ethan Bonner, and you hope that 3 or 4 of those emerge. I mean, no, a couple of those emerge after Fuller and Jalen Ramsey.
Yep, and I like what the Dolphins have done overall. I know I just mentioned the 30-somethings, but that's where they are financially, right? But I like the Marcus May move because of Marcus May. He's a good player, and because it does kick Nick Needham, I would think, down to cornerback full time, which helps you there. So really, there's no downside to that move. Another good move by the Dolphins. Again, Marcus May is not a Pro Bowl caliber player, but he can help you. He will make a meaningful contribution this season. I'm not saying he's going to have 4 interceptions or anything like that, but I would think of Eli Apple type contribution or more.
There's some people right there who would go, "Damn you, Perk! We don't want Eli Apple contribution."
I like Eli Apple a lot more than most Dolphins fans did. He filled a role. He filled a need. I liked his acquisition, so maybe I should have said another name, but you know what I mean.
No, I'm on your side here. I think he was one of those guys who was like very unjustly criticized and lampooned for his performance last year. He had some bad games, but everybody does. But overall, I thought he was fairly solid. And it's a guy you signed. I remember when they signed him in June or July. I mean, are we expecting what, primetime Deion Sanders? Were we expecting primetime Stephon Gilmore? I mean,
right.
Again, I thought he was solid. The one thing with the Marcus May acquisition too is I think you could see the Dolphins use a lot of 3 safety looks like Baltimore did last year, as I wrote on the website. And they did it more often than just about any team in the NFL last year. But you have to have 3 guys. And last year in Baltimore, they had Kyle Hamilton, who's about the best safety in the league, Geno Stone, and Marcus Williams, who are 3, pretty solid players. Now, the big question at safety for me has been and will continue to be until we see otherwise is how much does Jordan Poyer have in his left in his legs? If he does, if you can get a good performance out of Jordan Poyer and Marcus May, you mentioned him not being a Pro Bowl. He was Jets team MVP in 2020. I understand it's 4 years ago when he's had injury issues, had an off the field situation last year, but he's still a solid player. Now you could this gives Weaver the opportunity, if he wants to duplicate what he did some with Baltimore last year, which is have all 3 of those guys on the field at the same time.
Yeah, I'm excited about what the possibilities for the Dolphins here, because even as you look at who they've acquired, they're acquiring depth. We'll see how much quality is in that depth, but they're stacking talent. I like this approach, and with Anthony Weaver's creativity, I think there's a lot of potential for this defense, both as a solid unit and as a playmaking unit. I'm looking forward to some defensive improvement, and I say that knowing that they finished number 10 last year. I think they'll do things differently. I think that they will. I can't say that they'll be more effective. I hope that they're more effective and effective in a different way. But I'm really, really excited for these off-season moves, for the philosophy, and for the possibilities of strategic changes with Anthony Weaver. I'm looking forward to this defense, Poop.
No, I am too. And then, of course, there's the element of uncertainty because of Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips. And we honestly just don't know exactly when they'll be ready to go and when they'll be back to being Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips. I do want to touch on something very quickly before we move on to the next topic here, that you mentioned the Dolphins being 10th in defense last year. And this relates to a conversation that happened on Twitter, is the Dolphins were 10th in yards allowed. That's how when you talk about the ranked defense, for example, the Dolphins were the number 1 ranked offense in total yards. I think they may have ended up second in points scored, because in points allowed, the Dolphins were 22nd.
Yeah.
And this led to me saying, somebody made the comment of like, this last year was the best defensive Dolphins I've had like in a long, long time. And I am one of those who actually defended Fangio's work, but I shot back at that or pushed back against that because to me the 2020 defense was clearly better, and the 2020 defense was fifth in the NFL in points allowed and led the NFL in takeaways. And if you remember that season, they won a lot of games purely on defense. So, speaking of the defense, we should mention that the Marcus May move became official on Thursday. And to make room for Marcus May on the roster, the Dolphins waived defensive tackle Davian Nixon Jr. He was one of the 20 offseason acquisitions, but as I put in my rankings of the veteran additions, the initial list that came out, and certainly obviously the updated list, he was last on my list. Again, this was a guy who was out of the league last year. His chances of making the roster, both him and Isaiah Mack were two defensive tackles the Dolphins signed before the start of free agency, and then the Dolphins start signing defensive tackles all over the place. And I can just imagine Nixon and Mack seeing that and going, "Oh, thanks a lot, Dolphins. Yeah, thanks. Really, really cool." But I know there's slim chances of making the roster like decreased with each additional move. So anyway, but that was the move. And now when they officially sign Campbell, Dolphins will have to make another roster move to make room for him to stay at 90. Wouldn't be shocked if it wound up being Isaiah Mack, the other defensive tackle. Another move the Dolphins made on Thursday on a very, very busy day for Dolphin beat writers who were looking to enjoy Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final, or for some other Dolphin beat writers who may have been driving with their family down to Key West. The Dolphins decided we'll just make a whole bunch of things happen. Another one was the signing of first-round pick Chop Robinson. Entire draft class is done. That's kind of formality nowadays. Not like the good old days where there actually was a major negotiation to be had because there was no rookie scale. And I think the last time we recall a situation where a Dolphin rookie draft pick was not signed at the start of training camp was 2012. When that draft pick was, and I'm going to bring back some bad memories for some people here, was Ryan Tannehill.
Offset language, I believe, right?
It may have been.
I think that's what it was. Anyway, that which is basically how much if you get released, how much salary your team pays and how much the other team pays,
or whether you get the double dip, whether you get to
right.
your guaranteed money stayed with you and the other team's money too. So, but now, as I said, it's no longer an issue. Now, the only question with Chop Robinson is how quickly can he make an impact? Do you have any thoughts on that, Mr. Perkins?
I don't know how quickly he will be able to, but I know that the Dolphins need him to be effective in the 5 games before the bye, because to me that's kind of, after that, for Dr. Perkins says that's kind of when you look for Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb to start rotating back if they're not back already.
Yep, that's a good point. And again, this doesn't have to be, 4 or 5 sacks in the first 5 games.
Right.
It's affect the quarterback. Right. Let him know you're there and make him rush some throws here and there, and don't be a liability when they run at you. Or don't over pursue play because you're trying to make the big play and then use your edge and have somebody run outside of you and it's a 25-yard gain. And this is where I'm sure Anthony Weaver is going to be preaching to him, maintain your edge, and fulfill your assignment, do your responsibility, and then do your 111, as they say. And limit.
You know what, Poop? That's an interesting point, because for Chop, as a first-round pick with Phillips and Chubb possibly sidelined, I wonder how much pressure he'll put on himself to do more than his 111. His mental approach is going to be interesting as the season progresses.
Correct. And the other part of it, too, is that fair or not, and probably closer to unfair, he's going to be judged by a lot of people, media and fans alike, on sack numbers.
Yeah.
So this is where the temptation of him over pursuing is going to come into play, where he wants to make the big play from the backside, and maybe he becomes susceptible to reverses or. So But this is where, again, Anthony Weaver and this, again, maybe a guy like Calais Campbell is going to tell him, listen, Rook, don't worry about it. I think we had an issue with that with Jaden Phillips, who had very low sack numbers for most of his rookie season until he had a spurt towards the end and wound up with 8.5, which has become basically the number he gets every year. I mean, you can almost pencil it in. So I think Chop Robinson's going to actually be okay. And I'm not expecting him to come in and be a sack machine, even though if he does, that'd be great.
Okay.
I think that takes care of all the news for yes. Oh, we need to get to the other. This is the indirect news related to the Dolphins because, yes, it's going to affect them, and that's the contract extension. The Jacksonville Jaguars, as some people like to call them. And, Perk, you're shaking your head already. Oh, I like this. It's going to be good. Yeah. Gave Trevor Lawrence 5 years, $275 million. The extension averages $55 million, which ties Trevor Lawrence with Joe Burrow for highest annual average, although that doesn't include the guarantee. That's non-guaranteed money necessarily, and also it's the extension. So, what's the word I'm looking for? I will say it before some other media members who cover the Dolphins pointed out. It's not totally the real money, yes, but it's what's put out there by agents to do the comparison.
Right.
And then the other part is that Trevor Lawrence got $142 million guaranteed at signing with a total of $200 million guaranteed. And that, of course, is where Tua Tagovailoa, who's still waiting for his extension, is going to say the market is the market.
Yeah, and you know what? I agree with Tua, but I'm stronger on the side of I'm stronger on the side of making him play his fifth year option this season on his fifth year option. That's easy for me to say, right? Yes. Look, I understand Tua's frustration, and you're watching Jared Goff get paid. You're watching Trevor Lawrence get paid, and you're saying, Chris Greer, you pumped me up all throughout the season, and your coach pumps me up, and you guys talk about how good I am and how good it was that I took the jiu-jitsu, blah, 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 but you won't pay me. This sucks. I agree with Tua, but look, from the Dolphins standpoint, this is business. If I'm the Dolphins, I'm telling Tua and his representation, I need to see more. I need to see you stay healthy for one more season. I need to see you win a playoff game. I need to see you make guys around you better. If I'm the Dolphins, I'm telling Tua and his representation very candidly, don't take this personally, but I think you've benefited from the talent here. And I want to see a little bit more from you personally. And so that's where we are. And I did write a column today of what happens if they don't have a contract in place by the time training camp starts. I would imagine Tua would protest in some way. He didn't do the 11-on-11s in mini camp. But what happens then? If he still doesn't have a contract, how long can he go without doing 11-on-11s? I said in the column, August 6th would be a fake deadline, a collision course, because that's the joint practice with Atlanta. And if he doesn't participate in that, it's a waste of time for the offense. So we'll see with Tua. And look, there's also a chance they reach a contract agreement later on today. I doubt it,
correct.
But there's a chance.
No, correct. And based on Tua's comments, if we're going with the market as the market, which suggests basically he's not taking anything less than Goff, and now maybe is he going to adopt the same position with Trevor Lawrence? And to me, Trevor Lawrence is an even more interesting conversation because Lawrence hasn't gone deep into the playoffs like Goff has with his team, which is an argument that the Dolphins can make to Tua's representation when it comes to Goff. Sure, the stats are similar or your stats are better, but he was in the NFC Championship game last year. You weren't. Jacksonville doesn't have that. Jacksonville's been to one playoff season in Lawrence's time. He does have a playoff win to come back against the Chargers after the 2022 season, and then they gave Kansas City a good game the following week. So maybe he has that. And you brought up a great point, and this is a very major point of contention, causes a whole lot of debate and a whole lot of back and forth. And gets a lot of people in their feelings. How much? Because Tua's representation can look at the stats. Hey, who led the NFL in passing yards last year? Our guy. Who led the NFL in passer rating in 2022? Our guy. Which team had the number 1 ranked offense last year? The team quarterbacked by our guy. And this is where, as you mentioned, and the Dolphins might do that as delicately and diplomatically as possible. Yeah, but Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane. Find me in the NFL now or maybe ever a foursome of skill position players with that kind of speed and everything it opens up. We've heard the press conferences, to me, very eye-opening, the November of Tyreek's first year, where Wes Welker, who was in the NFL as a player for a long time before he became a coach, talked about he'd never seen like teams use 2 high safeties on early downs the way they do against the Dolphins. And why? Because they're scared of Tyreek Hill. And I said it before, I'm going to say it again. I do not think a lot of folks realize just how much Tyreek opens up for everything on this offense. It's crazy. And this is where, Tua orchestrates this offense beautifully. But how many could do the same with tweaks, obviously minor tweaks to adjust to their strength, just like the Dolphins did for Tua? And this is where, again, it's easy. Oh, let's take care of all of our guys, and there you go, Tua have the contract. But you also have to build a whole roster. So it's a very tough dilemma. And I'm on your side. Well, I've said all along the Dolphins should play him on the 5th-year option. And the one hesitation there is, how does that impact the 2024 season in terms of Tua's reaction to that and the potential consequences?
I mean, Poop, look, Tua is a professional, and I don't doubt his competitive nature or his, sense of fair play or anything like that. But he'll be pissed off if he's playing this season without a contract extension. He will be pissed. And I'll tell you something else, Poop, that like when I wrote, would the Dolphins get the same Tua in 2024 if he doesn't have a contract extension? Look, Tua's situation is different than what Christian Wilkins was in and Javon Holland is in, right? Tua's got his bag. Tua's playing for a bag and a half or 2 bags. Christian didn't have his bag. Javon didn't have his bag. So they had to play that final year, and he has to play, in Javon's case, this final year like this is it. If I don't do anything, I'm not getting paid. That's not the case with Tua. Tua's trying to protect money. Tua's like, even if I sign right now, I probably have, $150 million guaranteed. Don't blow that money by going out there and getting injured. Like, and again, I don't doubt Tua's integrity, his will to win anything. But at a certain point, you kind of want to protect your money and get more. So that's what I do wonder about that, Poop. If you would push yourself, if you had a hamstring injury as much, would you risk a multi-game injury that could take money out of your pocket? No, you would probably just kind of compensate and keep playing, and thereby you're not as effective. I know that's deep. That's reading a lot into the situation.
No, it's really, really a complicated situation, and it's made complicated by the fact that, and this, I don't want to say it's a worst case scenario, but the worst case scenario, like Tua's numbers suggest he's a different quarterback than he actually is.
Yeah,
and that's part of it. That makes it difficult. If it wasn't, by the way, for those who are wondering about the look, is I am outside our hotel room here in Key West, and the gardening people have decided to pick this moment to trim the lawn and trim the hedges. But Perk assures me that he can't hear the sound. I'm hearing it, and it's a tad aggravating. So I'm a pro. I'm going to power through it.
I just assumed you were cutting up a dead body back there.
Like Fargo style,
right? Exactly.
In the wood chipper. So it's a tough spot because again, it would be so much simpler. And again, this is the debate. And if you look at the national outlets, they do quarterback rankings. Tua is what? I think 12 is the highest I've seen him. I've seen him as low as 19. He's not deemed a top 10 quarterback by, and you can say whatever you want to say about those outlets, but it's kind of pretty unanimous. And the ranking and the perception of Tua nationally does not match the stats.
Yep.
And it's almost the inverse in a couple of the different situations where you look at Trevor Lawrence's body of work in his first 3 seasons in the NFL, maybe doesn't justify the contract he had, but the perception is still that guy's going to be a dude. Mm-hmm. And there's caveats there too as well, because Lawrence last year had Jacksonville on his way to the playoffs. Then he had that ankle injury in the Monday night game. Wasn't the same guy down the stretch, and he was playing with a high ankle sprain, which is not a minor deal. And then Jacksonville went in the tank the rest of the season, and Lawrence did not play well. So, yeah, no, it's a massively complicated situation. So where if Tua would be balled out with no concerns moving forward, it would be so simple. If Tua had sucked or had been mediocre the last 2 years, and his first 2 years, it was headed that way. There was nothing overly impressive about Tua the first 2 years. And I understand. I get it because I know it's going to come. The comments are going to come. I get it. The circumstances weren't ideal. But now he's become a good quarterback. Mm-hmm. But is he 175 million guaranteed good?
Yeah, I know we're past the 30-minute mark, but let me ask you this though.
Yes, you have a curfew or something?
I'm thinking of the viewers. I don't know if I'm holding their interest. Like they might be rolling their eyes at me. Poop, do you think that durability is a sticking point in Tua's contract negotiations? And if so, do you think he's being treated unfairly when you consider Joe Burrow has had injury issues, right? Justin Herbert has had injury issues. Trevor plays. He's been banged up. But there's been a few of these guys who have had some injury concerns, yet they still got paid. I don't know if the Dolphins are being – I think the Dolphins are being prudent. I don't know how Tua feels about that.
Oh, you don't? Really?
Well, I know.
Can I venture a guess?
Right. I know how he feels about the whole situation. I don't know if that's an issue, but it's interesting. Guys like Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, right? They got paid. They've had injury concerns.
Yeah, and I know how much of it is related to the concussions of 2022, which I've said were kind of a fluky nature. But it's there. He did go through the season last year without an issue, played all 17 games, lost weight. He's back to being smallish. Can we agree on that term?
I like chubby Tua is gone. Well, I miss chubby Tua. That's
there ain't nothing chubby about Tua. I mean, I saw that
Waddle quote. I like that. Yeah,
that shot of him at the event, the Perry Ellis event. I mean, he looked like a high school kid. I mean, I'm not going to lie. But right or wrong, I think you look at all those quarterbacks and their build, and I think injury concerns are there with Tua where they're not there with the other guys, even if they had injury. I mean, I don't know exactly the number, but there were a ton of quarterbacks who had injuries last year. Tua wasn't one of them.
Yep.
And I do believe that the guaranteed money is a sticking point as it goes right now. And the other thing is the Dolphins can, because you mentioned fifth-year option, the Dolphins can play the game of fifth-year option, franchise tag, and then another franchise tag, which – even though, because the franchise tag next year, I think it's going to be like in the 40 million range.
42, I think.
Okay. Then I believe the following year, you jack up if you do a second franchise tag, even if it's 50 or 60 million. Right. That's still going to be, those three-year equivalent is going to be still a lot less than you'd have to pay if you give him the money in, and you allow yourself the flexibility. I think from a purely team, standpoint, that's the way to go. But then you're dealing again, how's that going to work with the mechanics and the dynamics and everything else?
And Poop, if you're the Dolphins, you wisely brought up that thing with Tyreek. They didn't redo his contract. If you're the Dolphins and you're thinking, what are we going to do with Tyreek? Do you want to sink a lot of money into Tua also? If there's a chance that Tyreek if there's a chance Tyreek won't be there, how much do you want to sink into Tua?
Oh, I completely agree. But as was pointed out to me, maybe the thought was that, and I don't know, and I have to completely evaluate that. Maybe it was Rosenhaus who was holding off on getting Tyreek an extension or restructure, even though actually, as I think about it, really, that Tyreek would have passed up an extension early in the offseason to get more and wait for the other contracts to get done. Yeah. Not sure I buy that. So I do think there's a level of uncertainty with Tyreek's future beyond this year. And I think Tua needs Tyreek to be peak Tua.
Yep. So there's like you said, the Tua, this thing is so complicated. There's so many factors that Trevor Lawrence and Jared Goff and Justin Herbert and these other guys don't necessarily have.
No, correct. And that tells you that their team, right or wrong, have like a major conviction without reservation about them, whereas there is some reservation with the Dolphins, whether it's the durability factor, whether it's can we take the next step as presently constructed? Because again, 1-6 against playoff opponents last year, and the one win wasn't exactly like the Dolphins dominated that game against Dallas.
Right.
So, but as you said, this thing could drag on until past training camp, or it could be resolved tomorrow. The way things are going, they'll probably do it while I'm in Key West or somewhere else trying to vacation. So on that note, I will get back to vacation. It's a very hot and muggy day here in Key West, but at least it's dry. Yep. So time to get ready for a fun day of activities with the family. And on that note, I'm going to thank you once again, Senor Perkins, for joining me.
Yeah, man.
Thanks, everyone, for watching. Please like and subscribe. Please check out the written content at si.com/NFL/Dolphins. For Mr. Perkins, please check out his work at sunsentinel.com. And until then, everyone, have a great weekend. Thanks for watching.